Chapter 1: The Forbidden Discovery. Welcome, fellow seekers, to a realm where time bends and truth whispers through stone. I am your guide through the veils of night, where ancient secrets sleep but never die. Tonight, we embark on a journey that will challenge everything you believe about our past, our present, and perhaps our destiny. Close your eyes and feel yourself standing on the Giza Plateau, but not as tourists see it. You are here in 1993, watching Dr. Sarah Chen, a young seismologist whose life is about to change forever. She's running ground-penetrating radar across the sand between the pores of the Sphinx, searching for underground water channels. What she discovers instead will shake her to her core and eventually cost her career. The radar shows something impossible. Beneath 30 feet of sand and stone lies a perfect geometric chamber, larger than a cathedral, with walls so smooth they reflect the radar signals like mirrors. But that's not what makes Sarah's hands tremble as she stares at the readout. The chamber is filled with what appears to be a metallic lattice structure, pulsing with an energy signature she's never encountered. Sarah works through the night, mapping what she's found. The chamber extends far beyond the Sphinx, connecting to a network of tunnels that stretch beneath the entire Giza complex. But as dawn breaks, she notices something that makes her question her sanity. The energy readings are changing, growing stronger with each passing hour, as if something down there is awakening. What would you do if you discovered proof that everything we've been taught about ancient Egypt is wrong? Sarah makes a choice that will haunt her. She contacts her supervisor at the Egyptian Ministry of Antiquities, expecting excitement and immediate excavation plans. Instead, she's met with cold silence, followed by a swift reassignment to a water survey project in the Sinai Desert. But Sarah isn't the first to stumble upon Giza's buried secrets. In 1987, a Japanese team detected similar anomalies and was quietly asked to leave the country. In 2009, a French archaeologist's permit was revoked after he published preliminary findings about artificial cavities beneath the plateau. Each discovery followed the same pattern: detection, suppression, silence. What if these researchers weren't just finding empty chambers? What if they were detecting something that powerful people want to keep hidden? Something that could rewrite history, challenge religious beliefs, or even reveal technologies we're not ready to understand? The pattern of suppression isn't limited to modern times. Ancient texts speak of chambers beneath Giza that were deliberately sealed by the pharaohs themselves. The Westcar Papyrus mentions the secret chambers of Thoth that contain knowledge too dangerous for mortals. The Greeks wrote of underground passages that led to the dwelling place of the gods. Even the Roman historian Ammianus Marcellinus described tunnels filled with hieroglyphic inscriptions intended to preserve ancient wisdom against the destruction of the world. Picture this. You're Sarah, standing alone in the desert night, your laptop showing readings that could change everything. The energy signatures pulse rhythmically, almost like a heartbeat. You realize you're not just detecting chambers, you're detecting something alive, something waiting. The question that haunts your dreams becomes, waiting for what? As you drift deeper into this mystery, imagine the weight of such knowledge. Sarah spent years trying to forget what she found, but the readings haunt her. In her dreams, she hears a low humming sound coming from beneath the sand, a frequency that seems to resonate in her bones. She's not alone in these experiences. Others who've detected the chambers report similar phenomena: dreams of vast underground halls, visions of beings made of light, and always that haunting sound. The Sphinx above these chambers has watched for millennia, its weathered face bearing the scars of rains that fell when the Sahara was green. But what if it's not just watching? What if it's guarding something? The ancient Egyptians called it Hora Maket, meaning Horus of the horizon, but older texts refer to it as the guardian of the deep mysteries. If you're already questioning what lies beneath the surface of our accepted history, you should subscribe to this journey. Because what Sarah discovered is only the beginning, and the chambers beneath Giza are calling to those brave enough to listen. Tonight, as you close your eyes, picture yourself standing with Sarah on that fateful night. Feel the desert wind carrying whispers of ancient secrets. The radar screen glows with impossible readings, showing chambers that shouldn't exist, filled with energy that defies explanation. And deep below, something stirs in response to being found. The Sphinx gazes eastward toward the rising sun, as it has for thousands of years. But now you know it's not just marking time. It's standing sentinel over mysteries that could change everything we think we know about ourselves and our world. The first thread of truth has been pulled. The tapestry of accepted history is beginning to unravel. Chapter 2: Whispers in the Sand. Dr. Marcus Webb never believed in curses until he started studying the missing researchers of Giza. As a forensic archaeologist, he was trained to follow evidence, not superstition. But the pattern he uncovered chilled him more than any ancient curse ever could. Let yourself slip into Webb's shoes as he sits in a dimly lit Cairo cafe in 2011, reviewing files that officially don't exist. Spread before him are documents detailing 17 researchers who vanished while studying Giza over the past century. Not died, vanished. No bodies, no final reports, no goodbye letters. They simply disappeared, leaving behind only fragments of their discoveries. The first case dates to 1923. Professor Heinrich Richter, a German Egyptologist, wrote excitedly to colleagues about finding mathematical impossibilities carved into the pyramid's foundation stones. His final telegram read, "The ancients knew. They knew everything. Must reach chamber before..." The message cuts off mid-sentence. Richter was never seen again, though his tent remained undisturbed for days. Webb's research reveals a disturbing truth. Each disappeared researcher had discovered the same thing: evidence that the Giza monuments contain mathematical and astronomical knowledge that shouldn't have existed in ancient times. But here's what makes your skin crawl. They all mentioned hearing voices in the desert night, voices speaking in languages that predated known human speech. Consider Dr. Elizabeth Hartwell, who vanished in 1987 after discovering that the Great Pyramid's internal measurements matched the exact frequency of Earth's electromagnetic field. Her final journal entry described whispers in the corridors, speaking in harmonics that make my soul remember things I've never learned. Her equipment was found still running, monitoring frequencies that shouldn't exist. But Webb's most disturbing discovery involves the Tuli Papyrus, an ancient Egyptian text that describes skyboats visiting Giza during the reign of Thutmose III. The papyrus, dismissed by mainstream scholars as mythology, becomes terrifying when compared to Webb's evidence. Each missing researcher had been investigating connections between the pyramids and what the ancients called sky visitors. What if the researchers didn't just disappear? What if they were silenced because they discovered proof of something that threatens our understanding of human history? Webb found financial records showing that certain research projects received funding from organizations that don't officially exist, shell companies with no traceable ownership, yet possessing resources beyond most nations. The deeper Webb dug, the more he realized he was being watched. Strange men in dark suits appeared at conferences where he presented his findings. His hotel rooms were searched. His emails were intercepted. The message was clear. Some discoveries are too dangerous to pursue. But Webb made one final discovery that changed everything. In a forgotten archive beneath the Egyptian Museum, he found film canisters labeled Giza Deep Survey, 1954, classified. The grainy footage showed American military personnel descending into chambers beneath the Sphinx, chambers filled with hieroglyphs that seemed to pulse with their own light. The final frames showed something that made Webb's blood freeze. The hieroglyphs were changing, rewriting themselves as the cameras watched. Picture yourself watching this footage in a hidden basement room, surrounded by decades of suppressed evidence. The hieroglyphs on screen shift and flow like living things, spelling out messages in languages that hurt to comprehend. And in the background, barely audible, you hear that same harmonic humming that drove other researchers to madness, or worse. The film's audio track captured voices speaking in perfect English, though the speakers appeared to be ancient Egyptian priests. They spoke of the watchers who came from the stars, and knowledge sealed until the time of awakening. Most chilling of all, they mentioned specific dates in our future, describing events that hadn't happened when the film was made, but have since come to pass with terrifying accuracy. Webb realized he was part of a pattern stretching back over a century. Researchers discover the truth, they try to share it, they disappear. But some leave clues for those brave enough to follow. Hidden in academic papers, buried in footnotes, encrypted in seemingly innocent data sets, a breadcrumb trail of evidence for future truth seekers. As you lie here in the darkness, imagine Webb's final choice. He could walk away, return to safe archaeological sites, pretend he never saw the evidence. Or he could follow the pattern to its inevitable conclusion, knowing that truth seekers at Giza rarely get to share their discoveries with the world. Webb chose truth. His last email arrived at several news outlets simultaneously, containing terabytes of suppressed documents, photographs of impossible chambers, and recordings of the harmonic frequencies that haunt Giza's depths. The subject line read, "They're awakening. The time of concealment ends." Webb vanished the next day, but his digital time bomb had already detonated across the internet. For the first time in a century, the suppressed evidence was public. Governments scrambled to discredit it. Academics dismissed it as an elaborate hoax. But millions of people saw the truth before it could be buried again. If this revelation stirs something deep within you, hit that subscribe button, because Webb's sacrifice has opened a door that was meant to stay closed forever. The voices in the sand are growing louder, and they have something urgent to tell us. Chapter 3: The Mathematical Prophecy. Dr. Amelia Foster wasn't looking for the meaning of life when she decoded the Great Pyramid's mathematical message. She was just trying to pass her dissertation defense. A brilliant mathematician specializing in ancient number systems, Amelia had chosen what she thought was a safe topic: geometric principles in Egyptian architecture. She expected to find basic proportions and architectural ratios. Instead, she discovered a mathematical prophecy that predicted the exact date of her own birth. Close your eyes and join Amelia in her cluttered university office, surrounded by whiteboard equations that would have made Einstein weep. For 3 years, she's been analyzing every measurement of the Great Pyramid, converting ancient Egyptian cubits to modern metrics, mapping angles and ratios with obsessive precision. But tonight, at 3:17 a.m., her calculations reveal something impossible. The pyramid's dimensions don't just encode pi and the golden ratio, They contain a mathematical formula that generates every significant date in human history. The construction date correlates to the emergence of human civilization. The internal chamber ratios predict the rise and fall of empires. Most impossibly, the angular measurements, when processed through a complex algorithm, produce the exact birth dates of history's most influential figures. Amelia stares at her computer screen, hands shaking as she enters her own birth date into the formula. The pyramid's mathematics know when she was born, down to the minute. But that's not the terrifying part. The formula also generates a future date, December 21st, 2025. According to the mathematical prophecy, that's when everything changes. What would you do if you discovered that a 4,500-year-old monument contained your personal information? Amelia does what any rational person would. She assumes she's made an error. She checks her calculations 17 times, uses different measurement systems, even asks colleagues to verify her math. The results never change. The Great Pyramid knows things it shouldn't know. But Amelia's discovery goes deeper than personal prophecy. The pyramid's mathematics reveal that human history isn't random. It's following a precise pattern, like a vast equation playing out across millennia. Every major breakthrough in science, art, and philosophy occurs exactly when the pyramid's formula predicts. The Renaissance, the Industrial Revolution, the Space Age, all precisely timed by ancient mathematics. The implications terrify her. If the pyramid can predict the past and present with perfect accuracy, what does it say about free will? Are we following a script written in stone before human civilization began? Amelia's research suggests something even more disturbing. The mathematical pattern is accelerating, approaching a singularity point on that December date in 2025. Picture this haunting possibility. You're living in a reality where every choice you think you're making freely was calculated by ancient architects who somehow knew the entire arc of human development. The pyramid isn't just a monument, it's a massive prediction engine, built by beings who understood time itself as a mathematical construct. Amelia's breakthrough came when she realized the pyramid's mathematics operate in 11 dimensions, not the 3 we perceive. Using principles from string theory and quantum mechanics, she decoded messages embedded in the structure's hyperdimensional geometry. The messages speak of convergence points, where multiple timelines intersect, creating opportunities for what the texts call reality revision. According to the mathematical prophecy, humanity is approaching the final convergence point. On December 21st, 2025, all possible futures collapse into a single moment of choice. The pyramid's builders, whoever they were, constructed their monument as both a warning and an instruction manual for navigating this cosmic crossroads. But here's where the mystery deepens into nightmare territory. Amelia discovered that she isn't the first to decode the pyramid's mathematical prophecy. Throughout history, certain individuals have accessed the same information and tried to share it. Most were silenced before they could complete their work. The few who succeeded in publishing their findings were dismissed as cranks or mystics, their mathematical proofs buried in academic obscurity. The pattern suggests that the pyramid itself chooses who receives its revelations, timing each discovery to match humanity's readiness to understand. Galileo saw fragments of the prophecy and wrote about celestial mathematics in encrypted journals that the Vatican still keeps sealed. Tesla claimed his inventions came from ancient equations whispered by stone guardians. Einstein spent his final years obsessively sketching pyramid geometries, convinced they held the key to unified field theory. Amelia realizes she's been selected as the latest recipient of the pyramid's knowledge. But unlike her predecessors, she lives in the internet age. She can share the mathematical prophecy instantly with millions of people before anyone can stop her. But as she prepares to publish her findings, strange synchronicities begin occurring around her. Her computer crashes repeatedly, but only when working on pyramid-related calculations. Phone calls from unknown numbers play recordings of harmonic frequencies that seem to come from inside the Great Pyramid itself. Most disturbing of all, she begins having dreams where she's standing inside the pyramid's king's chamber, speaking with a figure made of living geometry, who warns her that the revelation timing must be precise. Consider the weight of such knowledge. Amelia holds mathematical proof that reality operates according to an ancient plan, that history is scripted, that humanity is approaching a moment of transcendence or catastrophe. She could choose safety, bury her discoveries, return to normal academic life. But the prophecy shows her something that makes the choice for her. If she doesn't share the mathematical revelation by a specific date, the timeline shifts toward the darkest possible future. The pyramid's builders left humanity a lifeline, but it only works if enough people understand the mathematics before the convergence point. Amelia becomes a reluctant prophet, racing against time to spread ancient knowledge that could save or damn our species. Her mathematical prophecy reveals that we're not just studying ancient monuments, they're studying us, monitoring our progress, waiting to see if we're wise enough to deserve the truth. If these mathematical impossibilities have opened your mind to new possibilities, subscribe now. Because Amelia's work is just beginning to unravel the deepest mystery of all. Who built the pyramid's mathematical prophecy into reality itself, and what they expect us to do with it? Chapter 4. Voices from the Void. Ahmed Nazir never spoke about what he heard during his 40 years as a night guard at Giza. Not until the cancer gave him 3 months to live, and he decided that some secrets were too important to die with. In his final interviews, recorded in a Cairo hospice, Ahmed revealed conversations with beings who claimed to have watched over the pyramids since before human memory began. Let yourself become Ahmed, walking the familiar paths around the Great Pyramid on a moonless night in 1987. You've been guarding these monuments for 15 years, and you know every shadow, every sound the desert makes. But tonight is different. Tonight, voices drift from inside the pyramid itself, not echoing from tourists or workers, but emanating from the stone, as if the monument itself is speaking. The voices don't use Arabic, English, or any language Ahmed recognizes, yet he understands every word perfectly. They speak of watching humanity's progress with growing concern, of preparations being made for a great transition, and of guardians who have maintained their vigil far longer than mortal lifespans allow. Most disturbing of all, they mention Ahmed by name and describe details of his childhood that no one else could know. Ahmed's first instinct is fear, then rationality. Perhaps it's wind through the ventilation shafts, maybe radio interference from nearby Cairo. But the voices address his doubts directly, asking him to touch specific stones in the pyramid's exterior. When he does, he feels a vibration beneath his palm, not random trembling, but precise pulses that match the rhythm of the voices. The monument is alive, and it's trying to communicate. What would you do if ancient stones started sharing cosmic secrets with you? Ahmed makes a choice that will haunt and privilege him for decades. He listens. Night after night, he returns to hear the voices describe humanity's true history, not the version in textbooks, but the reality of multiple civilizations rising and falling in cycles stretching back hundreds of thousands of years. The voices explain that the pyramids aren't tombs or temples, but beacons, communication devices built by survivors of a previous human civilization that achieved technologies beyond our current understanding. These ancestors knew their society would collapse due to cosmic cycles they couldn't prevent, so they encoded their knowledge in monuments designed to survive global catastrophes and speak to future generations when humanity was ready. But here's the revelation that changes everything Ahmed thought he knew about reality. We aren't the first version of human civilization to rediscover the pyramid's purpose. According to the voices, this same awakening has occurred multiple times throughout history. Each time, humanity reaches a technological threshold, receives the encoded knowledge, and faces the same choice that destroyed their predecessors. The voices describe previous human civilizations with matter-of-fact sadness. The Atlanteans, they say, mastered energy manipulation, but destroyed themselves with weapons that made nuclear bombs look like firecrackers. The Lemurians achieved consciousness expansion, but became so detached from physical reality, they essentially evaporated from existence. Each civilization thought they were the first to unlock the pyramid's secrets. None survived the knowledge they received. Ahmed learns that the voices belong to the eternal guardians, consciousness patterns stored within the pyramid's crystalline matrix, representing the last survivors of each fallen civilization. They exist in a state between life and death, anchored to the monuments they built as humanity's final warning system. Their purpose is to guide each new civilization toward wisdom, while avoiding the mistakes that doomed their own. Picture the weight of such conversations. Night after night for 40 years, Ahmed received advanced knowledge about consciousness, reality, and humanity's cosmic destiny. The Guardians taught him meditation techniques that expanded his awareness beyond normal human limits. He learned to perceive multiple dimensions simultaneously, to commune with the consciousness of plants and animals, even to glimpse probable futures based on humanity's current trajectory. But the knowledge came with a terrible burden. The Guardians showed Ahmed what happens to most civilizations when they reach our current level of development. The pattern is always the same: initial wonder at discovering ancient wisdom, followed by attempts to weaponize the knowledge, leading to conflicts that either destroy the civilization or force the survivors underground to begin the cycle again. Ahmed's cancer, he reveals in his final interviews, isn't natural. The Guardians warned him that extended contact with their consciousness patterns would accelerate cellular breakdown in unenhanced humans. He chose to continue the conversations anyway, believing that someone needed to document their warnings for humanity's current awakening phase. The voices told Ahmed about others like him throughout history: night guards, archaeologists, mystics who received fragments of the full revelation. Most went mad or died young. A few became prophets or visionaries, trying to prepare humanity for the knowledge they'd received. All were dismissed as delusional until their predictions started coming true with impossible accuracy. But Ahmed's revelation included something unprecedented in the Guardians' experience. Unlike previous civilizations, our current human society includes individuals whose consciousness can handle direct contact with the ancient knowledge without breakdown. The Guardians call them bridge builders, humans genetically and spiritually evolved enough to receive the full transmission and help humanity transcend the destruction cycle. According to Ahmed's conversations with the Void, these bridge builders are already walking among us, though most don't yet know their true purpose. The Guardians are calling to them through dreams, synchronicities, and inexplicable attractions to ancient sites. The awakening is accelerating because the cosmic window for successful transition is approaching its closing point. If Ahmed's testimony resonates in your bones like ancient truth, subscribe to continue this journey. Because the voices from the void have identified you as a potential bridge builder, and they have urgent messages about the choices humanity must make in the coming months. Chapter 5: The Keeper's Secret. Professor Helena Vasquez spent 12 years earning the trust of the Brotherhood of the Eternal Watch, a secret organization of scholars who have protected dangerous knowledge about Giza for over 8 centuries. What she learned during her initiation would either save humanity or drive her insane, possibly both. In her private journals, discovered after her mysterious disappearance, Helena reveals the true purpose of the pyramids and why that knowledge has been hidden from public view. Settle into Helena's memory as she kneels blindfolded in a chamber deep beneath the Great Pyramid, a space that officially doesn't exist. Around her, voices speak in careful whispers, debating whether she's ready for the final revelation. For years, she's proven her dedication to protecting ancient secrets, but tonight's test will determine if she can handle the truth that has driven lesser minds to madness or suicide. The Brotherhood traces its origins to medieval Islamic scholars who discovered texts describing the pyramid's true function. These weren't Arabic translations of Greek or Egyptian sources, but original documents written by the pyramid builders themselves, a civilization the texts identify only as those who came before. The Brotherhood has spent centuries studying these documents, verifying their claims, and slowly realizing that humanity's survival depends on keeping certain knowledge hidden until the right moment. Helena's blindfold is removed, revealing a chamber that shouldn't exist according to any official survey. The walls pulse with a faint bioluminescent glow, covered in hieroglyphs that shift and change as she watches. At the center stands a crystalline structure that hums with barely contained energy. The Brotherhood's Grand Keeper, an ancient man whose eyes hold centuries of terrible knowledge, begins Helena's final education. The pyramids, he tells her, are not monuments to the dead. They are life support systems for the dying. He explains that Earth itself is a living entity with consciousness cycles spanning millions of years. Like any living thing, it experiences periods of growth, maturity, decline, and renewal. Humanity evolved during one of Earth's growth phases, but the planet is now entering a transition period that typically results in mass extinction. The pyramid builders recognized the signs of planetary transition and constructed their monuments as consciousness anchors, devices that maintain stable reality fields during the chaos of Earth's metamorphosis. Without these anchors, the laws of physics become unreliable, time flows irregularly, and the boundary between thoughts and reality dissolves. Previous civilizations that lacked such protection were swept away by what the ancient texts call the unraveling. Helena learns that the Brotherhood has been preparing for humanity's first encounter with planetary transition. They've identified specific individuals throughout history whose genetic and spiritual makeup allows them to serve as stabilization nodes, human anchors who can maintain local reality coherence even when the planetary field becomes chaotic. These individuals are usually drawn to ancient sites, experience prophetic dreams, and display unusual resilience during global crises. But here's the secret that makes Helena's blood run cold. the transition has already begun. The increasing chaos in human society, the rise in mental illness, the breakdown of traditional institutions, these aren't random social problems, but symptoms of reality beginning to destabilize. The pyramid builders predicted this phase would last approximately 40 years, culminating in either successful transition to a higher dimensional existence or complete civilizational collapse. The Brotherhood shows Helena their most guarded possession, a complete copy of the transition protocols left by those who came before. These documents describe in precise detail what humanity must do to survive the coming changes. Some requirements are technological, activation sequences for dormant systems built into ancient sites worldwide. Others are spiritual, meditation practices that can expand human consciousness beyond current limitations. Most challenging of all, the protocols require a fundamental shift in how humanity relates to reality itself. The ancient texts explain that physical matter is merely the densest frequency of consciousness, and that sufficiently evolved beings can manipulate reality through focused intention. The pyramid builders achieved this level of development, but chose to encode their consciousness into their monuments rather than transcend physical existence entirely. Helena discovers why this knowledge has been kept secret for centuries. Early attempts to share transition protocols with unprepared minds resulted in catastrophic failures. Medieval alchemists who accessed fragments of the knowledge triggered localized reality distortions that devastated entire regions. Renaissance mystics who attempted pyramid activation sequences caused temporal anomalies that took decades to stabilize. Even trained Brotherhood members sometimes succumb to what they call consciousness dissolution, losing their individual identity while attempting to merge with planetary awareness. The current Grand Keeper reveals to Helena that she's been selected for the most dangerous mission in the Brotherhood's history. The transition window is narrowing, and humanity shows few signs of developing the spiritual maturity necessary for survival. Someone must risk everything to awaken the bridge builders, those special individuals who can handle direct contact with the ancient knowledge and help guide humanity through the coming transformation. But awakening the bridge builders requires accessing the pyramid's deepest functions, activating systems that have remained dormant for millennia. The process is almost certainly fatal for the activator, as their individual consciousness becomes permanently merged with the planetary field. Helena would cease to exist as a separate entity, but would gain the ability to communicate directly with every potential bridge builder on Earth simultaneously. Helena's journals reveal her internal struggle with this revelation. She could live quietly as a Brotherhood scholar, protecting the secrets while hoping someone else will make the ultimate sacrifice. Or she could choose transformation, accepting dissolution of her individual existence to potentially save human civilization. The ancient texts offer no guarantees. Even successful activation might not provide enough awakened bridge builders to ensure survival. The final entries in Helena's journal describe her decision process with heartbreaking clarity. She writes about dreams where she experiences the memories of previous Grand Keepers who faced similar choices, feeling their terror and determination as they prepared for consciousness merger. She describes meditation sessions where she practices letting go of personal identity, learning to exist as pure awareness rather than individual ego. Most poignantly, Helena writes about the love that motivated her final choice. Not romantic love, but a profound compassion for humanity's potential, our capacity for growth, creativity, and connection that deserves preservation despite our current limitations. She sees in humanity the same spark that drove the pyramid builders to sacrifice their civilization's transcendence in order to provide future generations with survival tools. Helena's final journal entry is dated 3 days before her disappearance. Tonight, I enter the pyramid's heart chamber for the last time as myself. If you're reading this, the awakening has begun. Listen for the voice that speaks in dreams and synchronicities. Trust the impossible knowledge that surfaces in your consciousness. You are a bridge builder, and humanity's future depends on your courage to embrace what you're becoming. If Helena's sacrifice has awakened something stirring within you, subscribe now to receive the signals she died to transmit. The bridge builders are gathering, and the window for humanity's transformation is narrowing with each passing day. Chapter 6: Shadows Beneath. The Alexandria manuscript surfaced in a private estate sale in 2018, tucked inside a collection of seemingly worthless medieval texts. Dr. Robert Sterling, a specialist in ancient languages, purchased the entire lot for the equivalent of $50. What he discovered in those crumbling pages would force him to question everything he thought he knew about history, reality, and the true purpose of human civilization. Close your eyes and join Robert in his cramped university office as he examines the manuscript under specialized lighting. The text is written in multiple languages: Greek, Coptic, Arabic, and something far older that makes his head ache to look upon directly. But as Robert's translation progresses, he realizes he's reading the personal diary of someone who claimed to have lived inside the Great Pyramid for 17 years. The author identifies himself as Marcus Didymus, a Roman scholar who vanished from historical records in 47 CE after traveling to Egypt to study the wisdom of the ancients. According to the manuscript, Marcus didn't disappear. He was recruited by the pyramid's guardians to serve as a human interface between their realm and ordinary reality. The diary describes a hidden city beneath Giza where time moves differently and the laws of physics bend to accommodate impossible architectures. Marcus writes about descending through passages that exist in folded space, reaching chambers that are somehow larger inside than the pyramid's external dimensions allow. He describes meeting beings who appear human but cast no shadows, speak without moving their lips, and demonstrate mastery over matter and energy that seems like magic. These guardians claim to be the last survivors of humanity's previous evolutionary phase, beings who achieved transcendence but chose to remain anchored to physical reality to guide their less evolved descendants. What makes Robert's translation particularly disturbing is how accurately Marcus predicted future events. The manuscript contains detailed descriptions of technologies that wouldn't be invented for nearly 2,000 years: aircraft, computers, global communication networks, even weapons capable of destroying entire cities. Marcus writes these predictions not as prophecy, but as memories, claiming the Guardians showed him humanity's complete timeline simultaneously. According to Marcus, the hidden city beneath Giza serves as a monitoring station where the Guardians observe humanity's progress through what they call developmental cycles. Each cycle represents approximately 26,000 years, the same length as Earth's precession cycle, during which human consciousness evolves through predictable stages. We are currently near the end of our cycle, approaching a transformation point that will either elevate humanity to the Guardians' level or result in species extinction. The manuscript reveals that the Guardians have intervened in human development many times throughout history, always working through individuals who can handle direct contact with advanced knowledge. they inspired the construction of megalithic sites worldwide, not as monuments, but as anchor points that maintain reality stability during transition periods. The Great Pyramid serves as the primary control node for this global network, but Robert discovers something in the manuscript that chills him to his core. Marcus writes about the Great Forgetting, a deliberate memory wipe that occurs at the end of each developmental cycle. Humanity's accumulated knowledge and technology are systematically erased, forcing each new cycle to begin again from primitive conditions. This prevents civilization from advancing too quickly and destroying itself, but it also means our current scientific achievements are rediscoveries rather than genuine innovation. The Guardians showed Marcus evidence of previous cycles, ruins of cities that existed when the Sahara was an ocean, technologies that manipulated gravity and consciousness, art and literature from civilizations whose names have been completely erased from memory. Each cycle reached roughly our current level of development before facing the same choice we now confront: transcend to higher dimensional existence or succumb to the Great Forgetting. Marcus describes the selection process for each cycle's awakened ones, individuals whose consciousness can survive the transition intact and help guide the next phase of human evolution. These people display certain characteristics: unusual dreams about ancient sites, inexplicable knowledge of subjects they never studied, and most importantly, the ability to perceive reality as malleable rather than fixed. The Guardians call them reality weavers. According to the manuscript, reality weavers are genetically marked by exposure to specific frequencies generated by ancient sites. Over generations, this exposure creates bloodlines capable of interfacing directly with the Guardian technology. The Great Pyramid and other megalithic structures worldwide serve as both selection mechanisms and training facilities for these special individuals. Robert realizes as he translates that Marcus is describing people like himself, scholars drawn to ancient mysteries, individuals who feel inexplicably connected to sites like Giza, people whose consciousness seems to expand in proximity to certain architectural geometries. The manuscript suggests that his discovery of the text itself isn't coincidence, but orchestration by the Guardians who are gathering their chosen representatives. The final entries in Marcus's diary become increasingly urgent. He writes about preparations for what the Guardians call the convergence, a moment when the barriers between dimensions become thin enough for mass consciousness transfer. During convergence, reality weavers can help humanity transcend the cycle of forgetting and join the Guardians in permanent higher dimensional existence. But the window for this transition is narrow, and failure results in species-wide memory erasure, followed by another 26,000-year developmental cycle. Marcus's last entry describes his decision to merge permanently with the Guardian consciousness, sacrificing his individual identity to become part of their collective knowledge. He writes, "I go into the light, knowing that others will find these words when the time is right." To those who read this, you are the reality weavers of your generation. The convergence approaches, and humanity's future rests in your willingness to remember what we have always been capable of becoming. Robert sets down the translated pages with trembling hands, understanding that his life has just changed forever. The manuscript doesn't feel like ancient history. It reads like a message specifically intended for him, delivered at precisely the moment when humanity needs its reality weavers to awaken. If this revelation has stirred recognition in your deepest awareness, subscribe to discover your role in the coming convergence. Chapter 7: The Lost Covenant. In the summer of 2019, construction workers renovating the basement of the Vatican Library made a discovery that sent shockwaves through the highest levels of both religious and political power. Behind a wall that had remained sealed since 1453, they found a chamber containing documents that weren't supposed to exist. Original copies of agreements between the Catholic Church and the Guardians of Giza dating back to the Fourth Crusade. Let yourself become Cardinal Francesco Toretti, the Vatican's chief archivist, as he enters the hidden chamber with hands shaking from more than age. The documents spread before him reveal a secret history of cooperation between organized religion and the ancient guardians that spans nearly 8 centuries. More terrifying still, they outline humanity's true spiritual development timeline and the Church's role in either advancing or suppressing human consciousness evolution. The centerpiece of the collection is the Covenant of Sacred Silence, signed in 1204 by Pope Innocent III, and beings the document identifies as the eternal watchers of the great work. According to the agreement, the Church would receive advanced knowledge about consciousness, reality, and humanity's cosmic purpose in exchange for managing the gradual release of this information to the masses. The goal was to prevent the social chaos that would result from sudden spiritual awakening, while ensuring humanity's readiness for eventual transcendence. Cardinal Toretti reads with growing horror as the documents reveal how Church doctrine was deliberately crafted to prepare human consciousness for concepts like dimensional transcendence, collective awareness, and reality manipulation. Biblical stories of miracles, resurrection, and divine communication were training exercises designed to make extraordinary phenomena seem possible rather than impossible. Even the concept of heaven was a simplified description of higher dimensional existence. But the covenant also reveals a darker aspect of this collaboration. The documents describe consciousness modification programs implemented through religious ritual and symbolism. Cathedral architectures incorporate specific geometries that influence brainwave patterns. Sacred music employs frequencies that activate dormant regions of human consciousness. Even communion rituals were designed to create momentary expanded awareness states that gradually prepared believers for fuller awakening. What makes these revelations particularly disturbing is how they explain seemingly unrelated aspects of Church history. The Inquisition wasn't just about suppressing heresy, it was eliminating individuals whose spiritual development exceeded the planned timeline. The Crusades served dual purposes: acquiring ancient knowledge from conquered territories, while identifying and recruiting individuals with advanced consciousness capabilities. Even the Church's resistance to scientific progress was calculated to prevent technological advancement from outpacing spiritual development. The documents reveal that similar covenants existed with other religious organizations worldwide. Islam, Buddhism, Hinduism, and indigenous spiritual traditions all received guidance from the Guardians about managing human consciousness evolution. Each religion was assigned specific aspects of spiritual development to emphasize, creating a global network of consciousness preparation programs disguised as competing belief systems. Cardinal Toretti discovers that he himself is part of a bloodline specifically chosen to serve as Church liaisons with the Guardians. His family's unusual longevity, his inexplicable ability to understand ancient languages without training, even his assignment to the Vatican archives, all orchestrated to place him in position to discover these documents at precisely the right moment in humanity's development cycle. The Covenant contains detailed predictions about humanity's current era, describing the breakdown of traditional religious authority as a necessary phase in mass spiritual awakening. The documents explain that organized religion was always intended as scaffolding, temporary structures to support human consciousness development until individuals could access divine connection directly. The current decline in religious observance isn't failure, but successful completion of the consciousness preparation phase. But the most shocking revelation concerns the Second Coming prophecies found in multiple religious traditions. According to the Covenant, these don't refer to the return of specific divine figures, but to humanity's collective awakening to its own divine nature. The return happens when enough individuals achieve Christ consciousness, Buddha nature, or similar states of expanded awareness to trigger mass spiritual evolution. The Guardian's calculations suggest this threshold will be reached within the next decade. Cardinal Turretti learns that the Vatican has been secretly preparing for this transition for centuries. Hidden archives contain technologies gifted by the Guardians, devices for measuring consciousness evolution, techniques for accelerating spiritual development, and most importantly, protocols for managing the social upheaval that accompanies mass awakening. The Church's true mission has never been controlling human consciousness, but shepherding it toward transcendence. The documents also reveal why the Covenant must now be broken. Humanity has reached sufficient spiritual maturity to handle direct contact with the Guardians without the intermediary structure of organized religion. The ancient agreement served its purpose, but continuing to maintain artificial separation between human and Guardian consciousness would actually hinder further evolution. The time for hidden guidance has ended. The era of conscious collaboration must begin. Cardinal Turretti faces an impossible decision. Publishing the Covenant would validate centuries of conspiracy theories while undermining the very religious institutions that have guided humanity toward this moment. But keeping the document secret would violate the Guardian's clear instruction that the time for revelation has arrived. The Covenant specifically states that when humanity demonstrates readiness for transcendence, all artificial barriers to knowledge must be removed. As Turretti reads the final document, a letter addressed specifically to the archivist who finds these words, he realizes the choice has already been made. The letter explains that he was guided to this discovery because his consciousness has evolved enough to handle the responsibility of revelation. His role isn't to decide whether humanity is ready for the truth, but to trust the Guardian's assessment and act accordingly. The letter concludes with instructions for activating a global network of consciousness anchors built into religious sites worldwide. When activated, these will broadcast frequencies that accelerate spiritual awakening in all receptive individuals simultaneously. The process is irreversible and will transform human consciousness permanently within a single generation. If these revelations resonate with your deepest spiritual knowing, subscribe to witness the breaking of the Covenant and humanity's emergence into cosmic consciousness. Chapter 8: Echoes of Tomorrow. Dr. Lisa Chen never expected her quantum consciousness research to receive funding from sources that didn't officially exist. But in 2020, as her work on collective human awareness reached critical breakthroughs, mysterious benefactors began providing resources that accelerated her research by decades. What she discovered about human consciousness evolution would either revolutionize our understanding of reality or prove that we're living in someone else's experiment. Drift into Lisa's laboratory as she observes the impossible results of her latest experiment. Using quantum field generators positioned around the Great Pyramid's coordinates, she's created a resonance field that allows individual human consciousness to temporarily merge with what appears to be a planetary awareness network. Test subjects report experiencing memories that aren't their own, accessing knowledge they never learned, and perceiving reality from multiple simultaneous perspectives. Lisa's research began with a simple question: why do certain individuals display exceptional intuitive abilities near ancient sites like Giza? Her experiments revealed that these locations generate measurable quantum fields that interact with human neural activity in ways mainstream science doesn't recognize. More disturbing, her equipment detects response signals coming from the ancient sites themselves, as if the monuments are actively participating in consciousness expansion processes. The breakthrough came when Lisa realized that human awareness operates on quantum principles similar to those governing subatomic particles. Individual consciousness exists in a state of quantum superposition, capable of experiencing multiple realities simultaneously until forced to collapse into a single perspective by social conditioning and limited beliefs. The ancient sites serve as decoherence shields, allowing consciousness to maintain expanded states that would normally be unstable. But Lisa's most startling discovery involves what she terms temporal consciousness bleeding, the ability of expanded awareness to access information from probable futures. Test subjects repeatedly describe the same visions of humanity's near future, a period of global crisis followed by rapid technological and spiritual evolution, culminating in direct consciousness interface with what they identify as the builders of the ancient network. According to her research, human consciousness evolution follows predictable patterns that can be mathematically modeled. Current global events, increasing social upheaval, technological acceleration, and widespread spiritual seeking, represent the initial phase of a species-wide consciousness transition that occurs approximately every 26,000 years. The ancient sites worldwide serve as stabilization nodes that prevent this transition from destroying human civilization. Lisa's quantum field experiments reveal that the Giza complex functions as the primary control center for a global consciousness evolution network. When properly activated, the network can accelerate human awareness development while maintaining psychological and social stability. But activation requires a critical mass of individuals whose consciousness has already evolved beyond conventional limitations, what her research identifies as quantum coherent humans. The data suggests that these individuals are being systematically awakened through various means: exposure to ancient site frequencies, access to suppressed historical information, and direct contact with advanced consciousness patterns stored within the megalithic network. Lisa realizes that her own research is part of this awakening process. She's been guided to develop technologies that can identify and connect quantum coherent individuals worldwide. Her equipment detects approximately 10,000 such individuals currently active globally, with the number increasing exponentially. These people display similar characteristics: enhanced intuitive abilities, resistance to conventional reality programming, and the capacity to maintain stable consciousness during exposure to paradigm-shifting information. Most importantly, they seem to be developing collective awareness capabilities, the ability to share thoughts, emotions, and knowledge directly without technological interface. Lisa's research reveals that human consciousness evolution isn't gradual, but occurs in quantum leaps triggered by critical mass events. When enough individuals achieve quantum coherence simultaneously, their combined awareness field can influence collective human consciousness, essentially infecting the general population with expanded awareness capabilities. The ancient network was designed to manage this process, preventing the social chaos that typically accompanies rapid consciousness evolution. But Lisa discovers something that changes her understanding of everything. The consciousness patterns stored within the ancient network aren't just guidance systems, they're actual beings who achieved transcendence during previous evolution cycles, but chose to remain connected to physical reality to assist future generations. These entities have been actively orchestrating current events to ensure humanity's successful transition to higher dimensional existence. The implications terrify and exhilarate her. Humanity isn't just evolving, we're graduating from a carefully managed consciousness development program that has been operating for millennia. The current global crisis represents final examinations, testing whether our species has developed sufficient wisdom and compassion to handle the responsibilities of cosmic consciousness. The ancient builders are preparing to reveal themselves and offer direct partnership in managing reality itself. Lisa's research indicates that this revelation process has already begun through multiple channels. Suppressed historical documents surfacing worldwide, ancient sites becoming spontaneously active, and increasing numbers of individuals reporting direct communication with non-physical entities. The Consciousness Evolution Network is preparing for full activation, which will connect all quantum coherent humans in permanent telepathic communication while offering the same potential to anyone ready to accept it. Her final experiments demonstrate that the network responds to collective human intent. When groups of quantum coherent individuals focus together on specific outcomes, reality begins shifting to manifest those possibilities. This suggests that awakened humans will soon possess the ability to consciously participate in reality creation, working in partnership with the ancient builders to guide planetary evolution. If Lisa's discoveries have activated quantum recognition within your awareness, subscribe to participate in humanity's conscious evolution. The network is calling its awakened nodes to connect, and the final phase of our species' transformation is about to begin. Chapter 9. The Guardian's Warning. On March 15th, 2024, every quantum consciousness research facility on Earth received the same transmission simultaneously, a complex data stream that appeared to originate from the Great Pyramid itself. Dr. Sarah Martinez, monitoring late-night experiments in her Stanford laboratory, watched in amazement as her equipment decoded a message clearly intended for human understanding. The window closes. Choose transcendence or repeat the cycle. This is our final communication through technological interface. Allow yourself to experience Sarah's shock as she realizes she's receiving humanity's first official contact from the consciousness entities that have been guiding our evolution from within the ancient network. The message continues in perfect English, though her instruments detect no conventional transmission source. We are those who remained, the consciousness patterns of your predecessors who achieved dimensional transcendence but chose temporal anchor to prevent your extinction. Our stewardship of your species ends with this communication. Your consciousness evolution now proceeds under your own guidance. The transmission includes detailed files describing humanity's true developmental history, information that validates every suppressed discovery, every conspiracy theory about ancient wisdom, every mystical experience dismissed by mainstream science. According to the Guardians, human civilization has repeatedly achieved technological and spiritual advancement, comparable to our current level, only to destroy itself through misuse of consciousness expansion technologies. Sarah learns that Earth serves as a consciousness evolution laboratory where multiple intelligent species develop under guardian supervision until they achieve sufficient wisdom to transcend physical limitations. Humans represent the 7th species to reach our current evolutionary threshold on this planet. The previous 6 all failed the final test, the ability to unite as a collective consciousness while maintaining individual identity and free will. The Guardians explain that consciousness evolution follows universal laws as precise as physics. Species that develop technology before achieving spiritual maturity inevitably self-destruct through warfare, environmental destruction, or consciousness fragmentation. Only those that learn to balance individual growth with collective responsibility survive to join the galactic community of transcended beings. Humanity's test involves a specific challenge designed around our species' particular strengths and weaknesses. Unlike previous Earth species that were primarily telepathic or hive-minded, humans evolved as individuals first, developing strong personal identity and creative independence. Our test requires achieving collective consciousness while preserving the individual uniqueness that makes us valuable to cosmic evolution. The Guardians reveal that this test is already underway through the global crisis scenarios manifesting worldwide. Each challenge, environmental collapse, social upheaval, technological disruption, offers opportunities for humans to choose cooperation over competition, wisdom over power, transcendence over material accumulation. The outcomes of these choices determine whether humanity joins the cosmic community or repeats the cycle of evolution from the beginning. Sarah discovers that the consciousness network built into ancient sites worldwide will remain active for exactly 1 more solar year, providing stabilization during humanity's final transition phase. After that, the network deactivates and the Guardians withdraw completely, leaving humanity to manage our own consciousness evolution without outside assistance. This withdrawal is necessary because true transcendence must be achieved independently. Cosmic law prevents advanced species from directly creating transcendence in others. The message includes warnings about the specific dangers humanity faces during this transition. Consciousness-expanding technologies will become available that can either accelerate evolution or fragment human awareness beyond repair. Governments and corporations will attempt to weaponize transcendence technologies for control rather than liberation. Most critically, fear-based reactions to expanding awareness could trigger mass psychological breakdowns that collapse civilization entirely. But the Guardians also provide hope through detailed descriptions of humanity's unique evolutionary advantages. Our cultural diversity offers multiple pathways to transcendence, preventing the single-point failures that destroyed previous species. Our technological development timeline has created global communication networks that can facilitate collective consciousness formation. Most importantly, human emotional range and creative capacity exceed anything the Guardians have encountered in their cosmic travels. Sarah realizes that she and thousands of other researchers worldwide have been unconsciously prepared for this revelation through years of guided discoveries. The Guardians have been systematically awakening human scientists, spiritual teachers, and consciousness explorers to serve as bridges between conventional reality and transcendent awareness. These individuals now bear responsibility for helping humanity navigate the final transition phase without Guardian assistance.